Hello, good people. My name is Michael DeCarlo, and this is decarlosdanger.com. A little update. I have recently, as in yesterday, let's set this whole thing up, what happened yesterday. Yesterday, I went to physical therapy for my back. I'm doing a lot better there, getting more exercise on my bicycle. I was really seized up for a long period of time where it made a lot of things uncomfortable to do and move. But we're getting around and getting better on that. And after physical therapy yesterday, I went to the public library in Sierra Vista, Arizona. And I asked for the location of Thomas Paine's book, Common Sense, because honestly, it seems to be missing around here in Arizona. Specifically in Sierra Vista. Sierra Vista, you see, is nothing but a reflection on almost a mirror image of what is going on in Washington, D.C. Sierra Vista, Arizona is a military town. The only industry we have is Fort Huachuca. And, you know, that is what it is. It's not like should be a surprise to anybody that comes here. They came here in the military, and they didn't look around when they were working for the government and say, well, I'm going to go work here, or I'm going to go make tires or steel or manufacture this, that, the other. They're really erroneous in their presumption of income, obtaining income if they're not working for the government one way, shape, or form. And when I mean government, I mean the entities that are within the government, not just on Fort Huachuca. I mean, realistically, folks, either you're working for the Army one way, shape, or form, which is the federal government. You're working for the educational system, which is varied. Either way, that's going to be county or city governments with a lot of input from the person who holds the purse, which is the federal government, from the Bureau of Education. So who holds the purse does dictate the tune. That is Christiane Hall's catchline, and I'm borrowing it from her. She has a wonderful podcast, and if anybody is interested in learning a little bit about liberty and limited government and keeping the republic, I would recommend you give Christiane Hall listen to. She has an excellent program. She puts out audio about once a day. She has a podcast that goes back a couple of years. A lot of good information there, and a lot of thoughts and thought processes that maybe a lot of you have forgotten about. Specifically, the Constitution restrains the government and what the government can do. It does not restrain what man or woman can do. The Constitution restrains what government can do to you. There was a write-up, and let me see if I can pull this up. I saw it on Cochise County Record through a Facebook app. And where are we at here, good people? That's not there. Give me a second, and I'll actually go back to that, because it's sort of something like maybe Judicial Watch would want to get involved with. And it's only because some of the adjudications that are happening down here in Sierra Vista, in the Tucson area, they're providing cover for the future for tyrants. It's either accidentally on purpose or accidentally, but either way, it's still happening. There's a couple agents that work for the government. We're going back to that government thing, right? A lot of these alphabet agencies in the area have bad apples in them, and that just is what it is, because there are a lot of really, really good people stuck in a bad system, and there's also times where there are bad people in a bad system, and when the bad people get caught, and instead of exposing everything that they did and holding them totally accountable, for their malfeasance or activities which we would consider criminal because they broke a written law, are given plea deals. When they're given plea deals and they dismiss these other charges, such as, let's see here, I pulled it up here. This is the information. This came from the Douglas Dispatch. It's written by Terry Jo Neff. She writes for the Herald Review here in Sierra Vista. She's actually one of the better writers for the newspaper that exposes or sheds light on some of the darkness that's going on here. Part of this plea deal, the guy's going to be able to retire, but he's got to agree to leave his job before the 15th of November for the sentencing and not seek further employment as a law enforcement officer. The plea deal also calls for the U.S. Attorney's Office to dismiss 10 other felony counts pending against this fella. Those include charges of wire fraud, theft, and unauthorized access of a law enforcement database. That law enforcement database, everybody seems to forget, and we want to divide ourselves up by either our creed or our color or our sex or whatever. What you're forgetting is that before you get to that point where you are actually dividing and doing by your own vision, dividing that stuff up, what you're forgetting is that you've already been divided. You're either even or odd. It may not be on your arm, but you are either even or odd. And that's part of the dividing us from our humanity. And when agents of change or agents within the ruling class are able to label us, then we're already losing. And then all they have to do at that point is put us up in different columns to tally up where they expect us to vote, and then they can drive the election by creating further divisions within them to put the beans in into different piles. Well, anyway, like I said, I submitted my name to be a write-in candidate for the U.S. Senate from the state of Arizona. U.S. Senate write-in candidate, Michael DeCarlo. Here, you can spell my name bigger. Learn how to spell my name. Please, learn how to spell my name. Because we can beat this system together. I know we can. The folks that claim to be running in the Conservative Party, that of the elephant, of which we continue to have to shovel the waste of it, are good people. They are all good people. I respect Sheriff Joe Arpaio. I do. I respect that he followed his orders. He's an order follower, and which is why the president gave him a pardon, because the previous administration was mad that he was doing exactly what FEMA grants, or the grants that he was receiving to become an extra federal officer. Hello, darling. You going back to school? All right. Enjoy your meetings. I love you. All right, babe. The FEMA money that he was receiving for being on the border, he was actually using in a way that FEMA money is... He probably followed... I haven't read it, but it's probably followed it line by line, because I'm very familiar with the outcome on how things ended up being. Another person that's running, our current congressman for my area, who should know all about how the border works. She's been in Congress for 4 years and now wants to run for the U.S. Senate, wants to be our senator. I respect her. She's the first female fighter pilot, in the Air Force. Good for her. But she's stuck in flyover country. When the president signed the Defense Authorization Act, she was in the crowd in New York, in Fort Drum, when realistically, based upon what the president's words were saying, she should have had him down here. in Sierra Vista at Fort Huachuca. But no, she was at Fort Drum. So her influence within the current administration is minimal, because if it was significant at all, she'd be here, or he would have signed that here, and a big hoorah, rah, rah would have been happening in Sierra Vista, and the hotels would have been filled for a day, and tax money would have been, some relief would have been given to our local government, which is funded primarily by federal grants. Federal grants. Our Sierra Vista is funded by federal grants, and that is really terrible. I say this, our collective property tax in this town is so minuscule compared to the totalness of the $70 million that it costs to run this city. That's right, $70 million is what it costs to run Sierra Vista. And only $300,000 of that comes from property tax. So somebody's pulling the wool over somebody's eyes for a very long time. And it's run like a business, and it's really disturbing. So there's also another candidate on the conservative side, a good doctor, Dr. Ward. Now, I find myself in alignment with a lot of the ideas from all these candidates, and even Dr. Ward. However, Dr. Ward's past as a scriber of prescriptions is trying to be rewritten. If I'm correct, and I think I am, based upon family and familiarity, I believe she used to be a doctor in Fairmont, West Virginia. And West Virginia is experiencing a very traumatic opioid epidemic. I actually have some direct experience with some of this. Both there in back east and locally. I recently had my children recently lost their stepsister to an overdose. West Virginia, my cousin, who was a really good man. We walked similar patterns in life. We both lost children, and we both had a rough road to hoe. He recently passed away on his couch. I don't know. I don't need the autopsy, to come back and say whether here or there. But she seems to be, brags about being, if it's a cancer, you got to cut it out. Well, she created an issue or participated in the creation of this epidemic in West Virginia, then moved out here to Arizona. And it's sparkling and new because she's a medical doctor. Well, anyway, I think that the weakness in each of these candidates is that they're all part of the swamp. All of them. All part of the swamp one way or the other. Either part of the prison industrial complex, the military industrial complex, or the medical and pharmaceutical industrial complex. Those are your choices as a conservative. That's really, really sad. Storm's coming. Can you hear the thunder? I just want to provide you a different alternate opportunity. I'm just a real guy, just like you. There's nothing special about me. My resume includes doing 20 years in the Navy on nuclear-powered submarines, being qualified assistant navigator, diving officer of the watch, chief of the watch, doing everything that in contact coordinator would doing pretty much. I was qualified everything an enlisted man could do on board a submarine, except for tell the nukes or tell the maneuvering how much power to make and give orders for which direction to go. Though I would recommend speed changes and course corrections or course changes to the officer of the deck, who would then verbatim provide those orders and give the other folks direction. And I would write them down as the quartermaster, which is more or less a paralegal, because all of the logs that I helped prepare were prepared in defense in case the ship had emergency, or it was an extremis, or we had a collision, all these documents were going to be used to provide defense to us, showing that we were in the right and that we took the actions that were proper to avoid collision. Now, as far as the folks on the left, I really, I feel your pain. I do. I was you. As an enlisted guy, for 20 years, I was you. People needed to be treated fairly. Everybody has value. I understand it. I completely get it. But you're not going to get any more value once you get any layer of government involved. Once you get any layer of government involved to protect you, you have to give something up for that protection. And when you require, you're more than willing to give that up for your protection, which doesn't add up to me, because you're limiting your ability to live your life, and you're limiting your future, because you're not going to be able to make choices in the future, because those choices will already be made for you, and they won't be made in your best interest. They'll be made in the interest for the common good, based upon government ideas. But I recently watched a debate on the conservative side with the Sheriff Joe Arpaio and Dr. Kelly Ward, and I listened very closely to the words that they use. Sheriff Joe's all about talking about pizza and pie. All about, here, let me show you pizza and pie. Here, let me show you how we can finagle these numbers to make it look right so that we can get more funding. Those words didn't come out verbatim out of his mouth, but for those with the ears to hear and the eyes to see, you can understand what he's talking about. The good doctor, she also talked about some things that kind of took me off guard. And to be honest with you, the body language of these folks, excuse me, is the part that actually bothered me the most. And not having the good congressman from my congressional district there to listen and debate was very, very sad. Of course, all these debates happen in Phoenix because that's where the money and population is. And it isn't that they need the money, because we're going to do this with so much little money, and we're going to beat them. We're going to make videos like this pretty much every day. I'm going to get on YouTube Live and Facebook Live, and we're going to talk to people, and we're going to take comments, and we're going to make this work. And we're going to do our very, very best to do so. I know that I won't be able to make all of you happy. But then again, not all of you make me happy. Excuse me. So, it is with that in mind that all of us are going to, I make this statement, all of us, if we're going to fix this, if we're going to fix the border, which they've been working on since the 90s with the virtual wall, if some of you are old enough to remember that, this is all just a cycle repeating itself, because if things are good, but we need conflict to create fear, we'll blame it on somebody else. And there's no easier way to blame it on somebody unless they look different than you. I support the idea of a wall. I don't think that the geographic location would be up for debate, and we can make the government work for itself like it normally does and be as anti-productive as it should be. Because as much as we want an efficient government, all that means is that it's efficiently taking your property and squandering it by dividing them up amongst others through regulations and paying people off to do different things. But anywho, I'm going to keep trying to do one of these here probably once a day or every other day at around noontime. My name is Michael DeCarlo. MICHAELDE, capital CARLO. Please share this video around. Please submit your questions to me, and I'd be more than happy to answer them. Because one thing I do know, I don't know everything, but I do know that together, with a voice of reason and a little bit of logic, we can solve a lot of problems. Good night, folks. Take care.